Hey, Homeworthy, I'm Patrick. You're here at my home in Los Angeles. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Be sure to visit our website, homeworthy.com, to discover amazing furniture, art, accessories, and more, all handpicked by our editors to help transform your house into a home. All of the items are inspired by the episodes you see here on Homeworthy. Enjoy!
My name is Patrick Bernatz, and we are in our lovely home in Los Angeles, California, in the northeast section of town. So the original structure of the house was built in 1890, and it's considered a pyramidal Victorian. So essentially, if you're looking at it in the plan, it's a perfect square. The house, when we bought it, was essentially a wreck. It had windows covered in plexi, linoleum 2 layers deep throughout the house, broken windows, popcorn ceilings. If it was crazy and gnarly, you name it, it was here. My wife and I were looking for a home that, could be renovated, but also be a great project for us. We're both Californians, and so we were looking for something that really exuded that older California feel that we grew up with. And a lot of those properties are being demolished for larger homes. And so we really wanted something that was historic and had a great garden that we could spend a lot of our time outside in. So when we found this property, it was, I think we both kind of turned to each other and just said, I think this is it. But we were also younger and a little more full of energy. So we don't have a proper entry foyer in this house. When you come in through the front door, you're essentially brought into the living space. This house is relatively small, and so we've really tried to anchor some of the program and furniture into the kind of perimeter to get as much flow and circulation as possible. One of the spaces I love the most is the living space. Even after we did all of the immediate necessary things to the house to get it insured, one of the first things that we did was work with a good friend who runs a furniture company, and he built this beautiful wrap-around mahogany furniture piece that we've had for the last 10 years. And I will say that we had this piece before we really had a dining table and dining chairs and probably a comfortable bed. But this was essentially the thing we really wanted, just because it's so magical, it's so comfortable, and it's just a real focal point and kind of center of the household. The kids now kind of run back and forth. Normally there's toys being thrown left and right, and it's really a great spot to also, once everyone goes to sleep, to relax and, take a look at the view. This window was originally not here. It was just a blank wall, which is kind of crazy, but this original fretwork was here. So there was this really beautiful detail that included, these small little pinpoints along with some of the molding that we recreated to help tie in the piece together. So now, the fun part is that if there's a storm or, if it's a really windy day, the family likes to hang out here, read, and then just take a look at everything that's going on outside. It's just a really nice, cozy little spot to hang out at. This coffee table was made specifically for this space. It was designed by myself, but then made in downtown LA with a great furniture fabrication studio. It's a beautiful salvage piece of old white oak, but then it was ebonized to kind of give this kind of darker, chiseled effect, as well as kind of relating to early Monterey furniture. The great thing about being surrounded by this really lovely garden is we don't really have to go to the flower market that often. We can literally just go outside and see what's in season. So right now, everything, our oranges and limes are going off. And so we have this, beautifully trimmed bouquet from our orange tree, which was also one of the original things that was a pretty strong selling point for the house. When you've got oranges and limes that, are on an 80-year-old tree, it's a good indicator that you might want to live here. So because we are a family with 2 young children and we also like watching TV, we do have a TV in this house, but everything, because it's smaller, is hidden. And so we created this really nice kind of tucked away storage unit. So the TV, when the kids want to watch it, is just right here. And then at the end of the day, when I don't want to see it, it just hides. So the floors in the house are all original. They were covered by about 2 layers of linoleum. So it took quite a bit of time to kind of peel everything back, scrape it, take off all the adhesive, and then get them down to this beautiful kind of warm honey color that you see now. What's nice is that we've used a lot of the wood flooring that was in the back kitchen, and then we've feathered it in other areas where the addition is. So it's nice that there's no delineation between the old and the new. It's all woven together nicely. We were looking at the existing details throughout the house and really trying to look for ways just to either replicate them, bring them back, and, as an architect designer, my goal is to not create an addition that feels like a monument to the larger design. It's meant to feel cohesive and blend in with the original structure. And so I looked a lot at older typologies of sleeping porches, bungalows, just to find ways to really tie this new addition with the older structure. A lot of the materials that are throughout the house are either salvaged materials or replicated moldings, or we've utilized details that would have been used in the Victorian era. You'll see transom windows throughout the house just to bring in more natural light. My wife and I bought this home over 10 years ago. We were in our early 30s and young, full of optimism and energy. So it was a long process at first just to get it to a place where we could even get it insurable. We had to put in a new foundation, and after that point we were, we had kind of spent a lot of our budget. So, we were sleeping on a mattress in the bedroom. The back end of the house didn't have a running faucet. So it's been a long time coming, but about 3 years ago, we finally got to a point where we could get it to the final get it through the finish line. So, we spent a lot of time just, creating the addition and replicating some of the detailing. And now we live here with our 2 youngest kids, Palmer and Inez. So this space is an extension of the living space. We tend to call it the den. It originally was much lower, covered in glitter paint, linoleum, and there was cardboard on the walls. And so we opened everything up just so it would feel like a larger extension of the living space. There was an original wood stove moment in this, but the stove was so old that we needed to replace it. But this is also a great moment where we hang out as a family. A really relaxing thing to do is to just light a fire at the end of the day, even have dinner on the floor, and it's just a really lovely, magical moment together with the kids. We are a family of 4. Toys are generally pretty much scattered around, but we do have some really kind of larger storage components in the house where things kind of can get tucked away. So when we have friends and family over, it doesn't just feel like, a play zone. So larger closet has the toy section where we put things away at the end of the day. But if you would catch us here on any regular day, toys would be around, kids would be building blocks, and it's, it is what it is in a small house. But there are very specific areas where things can get tucked away at the end of the day. This section right here was originally the porch of the house, and the the original owners ended up pushing it out just to make the house slightly larger. So you'll see that we kept moments where you see the existing siding throughout the property. There was an existing niche here, so we decided to put a beautiful black walnut bookshelf in here. These books are not decorative. These are all books that I've had either since I was a really young kid, all throughout college, and we use them all the time. So the kids will come, grab a book. If they want to, you know, our oldest is starting to become a little curious about what I do for a job. So it's fun for him to look at homes and, you know, buildings and just kind of get creative. Because it's a smaller house and we're always kind of, you know, fighting for inches, we use the floor as a real surface to really kind of sprawl out on. So a lot of times, you know, these giant floor pillows, you know, we'll just come, hang out, light a fire, or just, you know, watch TV on it. And it's a really nice way if you don't want to sit on the sofa to really kind of get down, hang out with the kids, and just kind of get cozy and casual. Because it's California, you know, we don't use it obviously in the summer, but throughout the fall and winter, this thing is on pretty much all the time, just because I find it's very relaxing. It lets out a really great, you know, smell and sound, and it's just a nice way to, you know, produce a little bit of heat without having to turn on the heater. And it's just a final, you know, at the end of the day when you've, you know, written a million emails and you're not checking your phone anymore, you can just light a fire and relax. So my wife is a big fan of Monterey furniture, and you see it in a lot of Spanish and arts and crafts homes. She found this piece at a great salvage yard and decided to give it to me as a gift many years ago. And so it's just a really nice spot to kind of hang, and it's just a nice kind of token of our relationship. My wife's family was good friends with the late artist Peter Alexander. This was one of his prints from the LAX series, and it was a series done in the early 90s, and it was his exploration with paint and, you know, all of these aerial, kind of famous aerial sites throughout Los Angeles. So this is actually called Gardenia, and this is meant to be a section, of Palos Verdes and Gardenia at night when you're coming in from LAX. We looked at different types of kind of California typologies when it was coming to the design. We did not want this to feel like an extremely minimalist home with, you know, out any color. So much of our connection is to the environment outside. So we tried to draw upon colors, you know, from the garden and from local woods and local materials for the design and styling. A lot of the woods are, you know, from within Southern California. A lot of the dyed leather is from California, and a lot of the furniture that was either designed by me using local materials or sourcing furniture that was from, you know, early Los Angeles designers. Even though my wife isn't a designer, she was trained as a photography minor, and so she does have a great eye. At the end of the day, it is a true collaboration just because we're both partners in this together. And so we're, you know, even though I'm, you know, running a design business and designing furniture and homes and spaces, I'm constantly in communication with her when I have an idea. So if you follow me, we'll go into the kitchen and dining space. So the kitchen was originally a much smaller space, about a third of what you see now. And the ceilings were, you know, essentially as high as the top of my head. And if you jumped on the floor, the whole structure shook. And so essentially the whole thing just needed to be demolished and rebuilt. So we ended up building this large new addition and tried to maximize on space and light. This is a very user-friendly kitchen, but it's also a kitchen that we use all the time. It's not just for show. So one of the nice things that I think we really love is that because we have all this back storage here, we actually put our refrigerator in drawers adjacent to the range. So if you're cooking, you can very quickly grab what you need plop it down on the countertop, and then use it very quickly. So when we're making meals for the kids, or if we're entertaining, it's within very close range to, start cooking. So if we're cooking, we're probably doing something pretty quickly. So like an easy broiled salmon or a roast chicken, just throwing in some veggies with an easy salad, just because we're always pressed for time. But we are always hanging out in the kitchen. The nice thing is that when we have guests in this space, if I'm here and trying to assemble things, I can have a conversation with them. My back is not to them. At the same time, I can look out at the beautiful garden and view, and it just makes for a really nice, energy between guests, myself, and the family. One of the things that we tried to do in this space with the millwork and cabinetry is tie it back to some of the original detailing in the original structure. And so we had an old millworker near downtown replicate the original wainscoting, and then we recreated some of the detailing above to just create kind of this tie of, the bands with the shelving. And what's nice is that it still feels contemporary, but it doesn't feel so modern and cold that it doesn't relate to the rest of the house. But we have, it's a small space, so everything that we need to access is pretty much here. We're not, these are all things that are used frequently. They're not just for decor. So these cabinets get a lot of usage. We did splurge a little bit, and for new parents, you can relate. We do have a small little section that ends up being a little bar. This gets more use when we're entertaining, not on a just daily basis. But it's nice because you can see that, because these cabinets are on pivot hinges, they can fold completely back, and you get easier access to either pantry items, glass items, or tequila. So the shell is a main focal point in the bar. This is something my wife's family has had for a very long time. My wife's grandfather was in the war, and he actually collected these when he was in the South Pacific, and it was something that the family has had for a long time. And now it has a very special spot in our bar. So my wife and I are collectors of pottery. We do go down to Mexico quite frequently, and some of the pottery that we have here is this beautiful green Adzompa pottery, and it just has this really incredible green hue to it. We've been collecting this for a while now, but they're just really beautiful, interesting objects with just this lovely green, dark green hue. And we use this quite often for serving and, for entertaining. But it's such a great color that works really nicely within the house with this darker walnut. And, we have some really other interesting pieces. This is a fish that my wife found. This gets a lot of use. And yeah, this I would say is more of our entertaining ceramic ware, and our go-to is in the other cabinet. But again, these cabinets get quite a bit of use on a daily basis. Even though the original kitchen was not very functional, it did have some really wonderful existing wood floor. We use that wood floor in other parts of the addition and feather that into the existing sections of the wood floor. What we really wanted in this space, because it was going to get a lot of wear and tear, is using a really beautiful salvaged tile. This was a really great product that we found through Exquisite Surfaces, and it just has this really beautiful reddish, dark tint to it. We ended up creating this sort of band pattern effect with it, just so it wasn't a perfect grid. But it's nice because it really kind of goes off the existing kind of openings of the doors and kind of, focuses everything on the view outside. So because we have smaller drawer refrigerators, we still have a lot of kid art and just reminders of things. And so we ended up putting a large cork wall on the back end of the kitchen. We didn't decide to go with, any crazy Italian marble or stone, but what's really nice about the cork is that the tiles have this, their own natural pattern that's from just the organic kind of, characteristics of the cork. So, we put recipes up here, kid art, even some of our ultrasound photos just of the children, and then artwork from friends and family. It's nice because we just really kind of create a collage of our life on this back wall. These two large terracotta vessels are actually bowerware pottery, and the interesting thing about bowerware is that it was made in Los Angeles at the turn of the century. They were very interested in recreating more kind of classical vessel shapes and sizes. The other interesting thing is that they were actually made right down the hill. So Bauer's pottery factory was 2 blocks away from the house. So a lot of the material is actually clay from the surrounding area. And we just love them because they have a great warm hue to them. They work really nicely with the wood. And it's nice to have something that was literally made 100 years ago, 2 blocks away. Again, some of the nice things about having a large garden is that you can just pick and choose from whatever's in season. So some of these objects are from just our garden. These larger chestnut branches were just, from a tree that we planted a few years ago down the hill. But it's nice because, we have this kind of moment of compression when you come into the dining kitchen space. And so we try to use branches as a way to gain some height, just visually, and then the rest of the height is the release towards the view. When we knew that we were going to get the house to its final kind of over the finish line, I knew that there were several pieces of furniture that were really important to do an exploration and study with, using local woods and materials. Some of our dining chairs are actually made from a local sycamore that's from a few miles away that was salvaged. We also used dye from cochineal from the garden. The cacti in the garden produces a little fungi, and if you dry it, you can then dye things with it. It historically was used for clothing, but for the past few years, we were just kind of doing studies with, could you actually apply that to wood? And yeah, you'll probably see within the house, there's not a lot of plastic. A lot of the materials are leather, metal, wood, and glass. So things that, are better for the environment and just kind of harken back to the time period of the house. My background is in hotel design, and with that, there's a lot of waste that comes from that. So when I established my practice in 2019, the goal was to use materials that were biodegradable, locally sourced, just because so much of the industry is you can have things shipped from all over the world that has an effect on carbon footprints. We really strive to minimize the amount of offshore and carbon footprint materials for our projects. So we don't have a formal dining space that's a separate formalized dining room. It just bleeds in to, from the kitchen essentially. But what's nice is that we have this really beautiful view that we tried to capture that was not really apparent or obvious in the previous iteration. But what we wanted to do was create this really lovely long wraparound banquette, so you were really thrust to the outer perimeter of the house, and then when we open the windows, you're really feeling like you're protected, but you're still, experiencing the outdoor garden. We tried to match the color of this, kind of dark green stain, and then we matched it with the banquette, just so everything feels consistent and continuous without feeling like a separate piece of furniture. We do spend most of our time right here. This is a beautiful rose Uniaki light that just produces this really great amber glow at the end of the day, so it has this really, fun, warm hue when we turn it on. The dining chairs and dining table were all designed by me and made locally. They're again a combination of white oak and sycamore. We used agave fiber for the actual woven seats, just as a break from the texture. But it's just a nice blend of wood and tile and ceramic and woven natural rope. It's just a good hierarchy of materials. So with the dining table, we created this small little aperture at the end, this hole essentially, that you can either use for larger branch bouquets, or we also use it as an ice bucket. So, you know, we'll chill wine in there when we're having, you know, friends over. And it's just nice because it's, you know, you're not having to have, you know, we're fighting again for space. And so sometimes when you bring things down to a lower level, you can really maximize how many things you can get on the table. And visually it's nice because you're left with just focusing on the garden and the view versus a lot of arrangements on the table. Even though I'm a designer, I will say that my two favorite things to do is either to cook in the kitchen, which we do all the time. We are a family that cooks, and we spend so much time outside in the garden. So, you know, I'm not a big person that likes to go, you know, jogging or going to the gym, but I like to just get outside and kind of work in the garden. So you'll normally find me outside, either planting something in our vegetable garden or, you know, tending to the many weeds that shoot up, you know, and also just spending time with the family out there. Our oldest son loves to kind of get out there and just help me water or, you know, pick weeds, and, you know, it's fun for the family. Not picking the weeds, but just being out there together. I know we've mentioned this a few times before, but our garden plays a really important and integral part to how we live in this house. So I'd love to be able to share it with you. So follow me. So one of the selling points of the house was this incredible garden. A lot of these older mature trees were here, but I will say that the rest of it was a combination of old oil barrels, you know, probably a dozen abandoned, you know, automobiles, and just essentially buried garbage. We still occasionally, when we're planting something, we'll find, you know, the remnants of an old toaster, or just yesterday while we were cleaning up, we found a collection of old forks and an axe end. So, you know, there's always surprises in this garden. But I think the thing that's so magical is that so many of these trees in Northeast Los Angeles are really old. So this palm tree is over 100 years old. I mean, it just towers above the house. This is our, you know, magnificent lime tree, which, you know, we use all the time for margaritas. So again, like, kind of have to have one of these. This staircase was originally a concrete ramp with a broken bird feeder, and, you know, up until a few years ago it was still that. But what's nice is that we were able to find some really beautiful Mexican handmade bricks and then utilize stone underneath the concrete ramp for all of these planters. And so we were utilizing most of the materials that were already present on the property. And what's great is that it just feels, you know, like one solid palette, and it's just a clean, warm kind of place to hang. All of the jade, all of the aloes and agave, everything that you see that's essentially blooming with a floral, we planted. The trees were here, but all of these agaves, we planted ourselves. So some are just getting ready to explode again with blooms. A lot have already kind of, you know, you're beginning to see them expiring, but they're so incredible. You know, my wife and her brother, you know, took these two larger agaves years ago and crammed them into the back of their car from a friend's house, and then we planted them. So, you know, I will say a lot of these plants were given by friends who just didn't want them anymore, and, you know, we had enough space that, you know, we gladly were going to put them in the garden. So if we're not dining inside, and if the weather permits, we are outside most of the time. So we're either entertaining and eating here, and the kids are just running around. But it's just a really nice, you know, outdoor patio. We're protected with this beautiful loquat canopy, so we're, you know, it creates this really nice little intimate space, but we still get really nice, you know, natural daylight. We have a little bit of privacy, and, you know, we can see downtown LA. So it's a really nice little spot. Unless it's absolutely freezing, which it rarely is, and you know, even if it's raining, we're probably outside 90% of the time. What's nice about the space is that we're in such close proximity to downtown, only 1.5 miles, but you wouldn't know it living up in this little sanctuary. So, you know, the kids have a great place to kind of be close to the city, but they have their own little magical garden that they can, you know, explore, go on adventures in, and just, you know, do all those things that kids need to do. I think the thing that is probably the biggest showstopper is in the addition, in the kitchen, we really tried to get as much natural light into that space, but we utilized a series of exterior shutters that were made from salvaged redwood. And what that does is, it's a feature that acts as both a way to, you know, filter out, you know, bugs, and, you know, we can still maintain kind of a climate control system. It's also great because we have this beautiful wraparound bench, which is beautiful and great, but we also have a toddler that's, you know, learning how to walk. So when you close the screen, it's nice because we can, you know, everyone is safe, and, you know, we can have dinners, and it's a really kind of romantic spot to hang out with friends and the family. So again, because it's a really small home in a small space, we've tried to find clever moments of utilizing as much space as possible, but also hiding kind of, you know, doors and cabinetry so it didn't feel overwhelming with how we utilize things. So this at one point was our bedroom, and we just completely demolished it and reconfigured it so it would be this really nice primary bath. You know, we just have this really beautiful salvaged piece of California granite that we took from the Sierras and then had it fashioned into this beautiful back slab, kind of backsplash piece. All of the wood is sycamore, local sycamore, and it was made into these really clever little shutters that then kind of sneak, you know, private little areas for mirror, while also maintaining some privacy from the neighbor. We didn't have enough space to do a proper separation between shower and tub, but what's really nice is that, you know, when my wife and I were kids, you'd see this in a lot of 70s and 60s home. You'd have a really cool drop-down tub shower combo. And so that's what we did, because we had to, you know, create an extension for the new foundation anyway. So this is, you know, essentially our shower tub. This is also very popular with the kiddos. You know, but what's nice is that you're able to just kind of open this window to the garden and have this little indoor-outdoor moment, which is really special. We have this really beautiful sycamore paneling that's throughout the space, and what's nice is that when you come down, it feels like an architectural millwork panel moment, but in reality, you can kind of sneak in to the primary closet, which is a little messy these days. But what's nice is that, you know, because of these special pivot hinges, we have a full-length mirror that you can use when you're trying to rush out, you know, to make sure you look appropriate for the day. And then otherwise, we just keep that closed because it's kind of messy. I feel like as long, you know, what I try to tell clients is it's easy to buy a home and automatically want to make all these changes, but it really, you know, takes some living in just to understand how you're going to utilize the space. And so, I mean, in essence, we lived here for a decade until we created this. And so I think as long as you're true to what your needs are and, you know, you don't follow trends, you really find the things that create magic in your life and joy, then it's gonna, you know, it's gonna be transparent with the furniture you choose, the art that you live with, and how you occupy the space. So the primary bedroom was part of the addition included in the renovation. We lined everything in the sycamore paneling just to create this really nice kind of warm, cozy womb. But then we used some of the older detailing from the original part of the house and brought it in here. So you can see it with the upper trim molding here. And then some of the shutter details that you see throughout the house were also added here, but we just did it out of sycamore. A lot of built-ins just to kind of get as much storage as possible. And you know, what is a bookcase can also turn into a small work surface, just if, you know, I need to write a few emails throughout the day, or, you know, kind of sign off at the end of the evening. Because this was the addition, we needed wood flooring, but this is all of that beautiful Douglas fir that was originally in the kitchen that we had removed, sanded, and then feathered back into the original section of the house. So again, it just feels really consistent without it feeling, you know, like an homage or a time capsule to, you know, 1890. A lot of the walls throughout the bedroom and bathroom are made with a really nice Texton plaster finish, which just gives a really nice earthy hand to the walls, so it doesn't feel so perfect. This painting was, it's a Carl Schultz. He's just a very interesting early California painter that did a lot of nightscapes. And so to us, it was just this kind of, again, you know, the colors throughout the house are, you know, represented in this painting, but it's also just emblematic of, I think, a time period that my wife and I, you know, I think grew up with, and we can relate, you know, maybe it's our grandparents' homes or our relatives' homes, but it's something you don't see that often anymore. So it's nice to bring in some of those older moments into the home, even though you have some of this more contemporary monolithic paneling mixed in with some of the older detailing. So with these smaller spaces, there's always a push and pull to kind of create these little cubbies for storage. So a lot of times, you know, we'll just put our phones up here, or if we're reading a book, it'll just go up here. And it's just a nice little release so that it's not, you know, again, it's not that large of a space. And so visually you can kind of create these little tricks by creating these little niches and cubbies. So everything kind of extends a bit farther than what it is in reality. But yeah, you know, we lined the back headboard piece in this really beautiful rose tarlo, kind of saffron colored fabric. You know, we love this older kind of mustard color. I think it works really nicely with the wood, but it's also kind of just relates to this style of architecture that, you know, we're trying to create in this home, which is, you know, again, contemporary with nods back to kind of an older California. I think for as long as I can remember, I've always been interested in space, and, you know, even, you know, now it's getting into the essence and idea of home. It can even be, you know, when I was a kid and we moved, you know, for you 90s kids, you'll probably remember the movie Harriet the Spy. I would kind of deck myself out in that kind of outfit and climb into model homes and hide when other people were, you know, touring them. And I think it was just a way to understand what people were looking for in a home, but it's also just, you know, me being a ridiculous kid and trying to get away with stuff. But yeah, I guess I've just been interested in how people occupy space and how you can create space, how you can blend space together, and how that, you know, affect your home, your garden, you know, your commercial space, and so forth. So even though this is a smaller room, what's great is we have this really wonderful French door system opposite the bed. And one of the most wonderful things is to wake up in the morning and just kind of go out and take in the view of the garden and the neighboring canyon. So I'd love to take you out there right now. So this patio extension, porch extension, was a real easy way just to get a little more real estate off of the bedroom without it being an actual kind of conditioned space attached to the, you know, the interior of the house. So what's great is that, you know, from our bed, we can constantly look out at the view, but then, you know, open these big French doors, really let in the exterior, and just really take in this, you know, the view of the canyon. And, you know, I mean, you're up in the treetops. You're kind of in a little tree house up here. So the hallway that leads to two of the bedrooms is very efficient, but we added these transoms throughout to get as much natural light into the smaller space as possible. We lined the upper skylight with a beautiful warm oak just to kind of give this really nice late afternoon glow to this hallway. This sconce was made by Natalie Weinberger in New York City. She and I were kind of discussing this piece for a while, and we wanted this really beautiful candlelight moment to be placed at the end of the hallway that we could, light at the end of the day, just to kind of wind down, get your brain ready for bed. And she came up with this really lovely design that we use quite often. What's nice about this hallway is that, it's a small, intimate space, but by utilizing these pocket doors, you can really, pack quite a bit of punch in just in terms of, fighting for inches. We added transoms throughout the hallway just to get as much natural light into these smaller spaces. So in the kids' bathroom and the guest bathroom, it's a very compact little zone, but we're able to fit it all in. So there's a real interesting kind of little small compact sink. We found this really old Batchfelder ceramic tile piece that was a soap dish, and we just embedded it in. So it's a really fun 100-year-old object that's just embedded in the plaster. But then we use this as our kind of main medicine cabinet, so we're really able to kind of utilize quite a bit of storage that's off behind some of the plumbing. Again, additional storage underneath the sink. This is a really beautiful tile from Spain that we found. That was here in California that was just in excess, so we decided to use it just because we didn't need that much. And then we just found an old porcelain cast iron tub and just, placed it in as an alcove. And, it's a small space, but it's still kind of a magical space with the skylight, this really fun fabric, and yeah. I think deep down, even though I love to travel, I really am a homebody. I just am looking for that safe space away from, a lot of the stress and chaos from the world. And even though we are here as a family, which can have its own, little kind of micro stress moments, it's just a great place to just hang, have conversations, and spend quality time with one another.
Thanks for watching. Go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content and shopping guides.